Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, hello and welcome to this week's Sunday Conversation here on Big Country Politics. This week our special guest is Travis Craver, Abilene incumbent candidate for Abilene City Council, Place 6. Travis, this is the first opportunity to really chat with you here on the program. Thank you so much for making time.
Happy to be here.
Yes, yes indeed. Well, you've been a part of the Abilene community for some time, going back to your days as a member of the Hardin Simmons football team, Go Cowboys, from HSU. 2001 to 2004. I imagine you have some amazing stories about that.
I do.
I bet you do. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to pursue politics.
Yeah. First and foremost, I think the first thing I am is I'm a believer and a father and a husband, and that in many ways encompasses who I am. I think one of the things that has led me to politics per se had nothing to do with politics as much as it had to do with just a heart that desired to serve its community, a heart that desired to be a part of what the community was doing. And so being here in Abilene for such a long time, you can't help but love the people. And along with the people, you can't help but love the place. And so for such a long time, my wife and I have called Abilene home.
Yeah. As a member of the Hardin HSU football team many years ago, did you ever envision yourself, you know what I'm doing right now is cool, but down the road, I might be a city council member?
Not at all. And the best part about that is I'm glad I never thought about that, because you have all these thoughts and these dreams for life, and God has a way of showing you what's better. And I think for me, football in many ways did shape a servant's heart in me. It allowed me to work with a lot of different people from every type of background you can imagine. And I think that was really kind of a precipice of foundation that helped make city council and politics a lot easier to exist in.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Well, you're seeking a third term on the council. What's the motivation for another term?
Man, I think more than anything is just the excitement of what we're doing here in the city. I know that I've made a commitment to the people of Abilene: fire, streets, economic development, infrastructure. And I think a third term continues the continuity of advancing those long-term priorities forward.
Yeah, good stuff. For someone who's been on the city council for 2 terms, almost 6 years, a lot of people that come into this position, they think, oh, well, I'm going to make all these changes and do all these things. And, and that's a great spirit. That's to something to have. But there's a lot of preparation that goes into this, a lot of reading, if you will. Blaze Reagan has really touched a lot on that. Right. What's all that like when you put all that in the pot and stir it all together?
It's one of those things when you're at school, at lunch we used to have this dish served, goulash. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that? Okay. And for whatever reason, I loved it. Now that I'm older, I'm glad I didn't know how they made it. And I think one of the blessings is when citizens entrust us with making policy changes and really leading out and being their voice on council, it is such an honor. But for us, a lot of it's just reading detailed reports. It's studying ordinances. It's studying politics, studying trends, being kind of on the forefront of all of those different things. But you're learning that there has to be collaboration, that you're connecting the citizens, but you're also connecting the policymakers, the private entities, and you're figuring out a way forward to advance those areas.
As an elder at the Well Church and member of multiple boards in Abilene, how have those leadership roles really shaped your approach to serving on the Abilene City Council?
I think every single role that I've been a part of, first and foremost, I've gone into it with a sense of humility and understanding that there was context before I got there, and that context informs the way that they operate. And so I go into it more so trying to figure out and learn as much as I can. And upon learning, figuring out ways that I can use the different gifts that I've been given to enact change, to figure out different nuances that maybe haven't been looked into before. And so for me, a lot of it is just understanding humility, servant leadership, the value of listening, the value of collaboration, and understanding that those things play a part in advancing anything that you want to get done.
Yeah. Well, in 6 years of serving on the council, million-dollar question here. What do you feel like you learned the most?
I think I am continuing to learn the most. You can never do enough listening. You know, our citizens are very passionate about different things that I don't always feel I'm as passionate about, but that's totally okay. I think I'm learning that they're passionate about things, and listening to them, studying the issues, and trying to advance those different priorities has been really, really exciting for me. I'm learning that you're never arrived. As many of those of us that have served on council for such a long time, it's easy to get into the thought of, okay, I finally mastered this, or I finally understand this, and it's always ever changing. So there's humility there. And then lastly, I think that you go to work every day just excited that people trust you. People have trusted you to place you in those seats, and you want to really do the very best that you can to honor them and honor the role. So that means studying, that means listening, that means really being a team player and advancing a mission forward.
Yes, sir. Well, we're going to step aside for a quick commercial break, but when we come back, more with incumbent candidate for Abilene City Council Place 6, Travis Craver. We talk about some of his goals and fiscal responsibility from the council's perspective. That and more right here on Big Country Politics.
Welcome back to Big Country Politics on KTAB.
Well, welcome back to the Sunday conversation here on Big Country Politics. This week, our special guest is incumbent candidate for Abilene City Council Place 6, Travis Craver, Dr. Travis Craver. On the City Abilene website, abilenetx.gov, you list your goals for Abilene: continue to develop and maintain relationship and coordination of public and private partnerships, engaged and informed community, fully staffed fire and police, long-term solution for water and streets, retention of talented professionals, and sound economic development. Those are a lot of things and a lot of good things there. Tell us about a long-term solution for water and streets and what that could look like with you as a member of the City Council for another 3 years.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, as we all know, since 2018, we've had over 55 million reinvested back into our streets. You know, the common knowledge of a lot of people is our streets need repair, and that remains a high priority goal for every city council person, and I can speak for myself included. Since 2017 till now, over 29% of our streets have been touched in some fashion. And I think that a lot of our citizens, when they hear those numbers, it's like, oh wow, either they're experiencing it or they get to understand, like, we are addressing all of those different priorities that we shared were important to us. Over 140 million has been invested into maintenance of streets in some form or fashion, whether it's from DCOA or our street maintenance fund. So there's a continued high prioritization there, and we want citizens to know that that remains at a high level of priority for us. I would also say, in terms of water, you know, if you look back, I think contextually it's important to understand Abilene has a long history of droughts and us having the ability or inability to plan ahead. And I think one of the priorities for the recent councilling years, if you look back in the 1900s, a lot of it was wells and reservoirs, and then it became drought conservation because Abilene was going through many droughts. And then if you look at it from the 2000s till now, Abilene has been so proactive in trying to figure out what are some ways that we can diversify our water? What are some ways that we can continue to really lean into ways in which we are planning for the future as opposed to addressing immediate needs of the now? And so for me, a lot of that continues to be diversification is essential. I think education is essential. What does it look like to have conservation not as something that is an immediate need, but as something that is continuously built into the infrastructure of what we're doing? And so for me, having those at the forefront along with public safety and infrastructure remains at a high priority. But I think that a lot of those different things are tasked with collaboration, diversification, and looking into ways in which we've maybe not tapped in.
Sure. Well, your opponent, Tammy Fogel, was very critical last week here on this program on the council's decision to move forward with a new dog park, a potential bond for the airport, and the prioritization of basics like streets in the improvement of water infrastructure. Do you feel that the city council's been fiscally responsible during these 2 terms that you've served on the council?
Absolutely. I think that, you know, my opponent has expressed some of those different concerns, but I think when you're able to sit down with the numbers and you're able to truly understand the reprioritization of the monies and the different dollars that are being allocated to address different needs, that remains at the forefront of our priorities. Whether you're looking at my profile or any other person's profile, that continues to remain a high priority. I think that one of the things, when you look at all of those, they're directed by our peers, they're directed by our bosses, the citizens, and a lot of those are different things that they're going to have the voice, they're going to have the say-so in how we move forward in that. And that to me is a win-win. I think whether you're looking from the dog park or whether you're looking at how much we're spending fiscally for the streets, you're seeing a council that understands that we want our citizens' voices to be heard. And so we're giving them the opportunity to speak into all of those different decisions that we're making. And so for me, I think that council remains high priority of allocating dollars in a responsible manner, not because our citizens won't want that, but because that's what we all need and we desire.
Sure. Well, a few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to chat with your fellow council member, Callum McAllister. I'm going to ask you a similar question. Has there been an ordinance or ordinances that come to mind that you've been able to have singular influence on, or that you've been part of, that has made an impact in the city?
I think the first thing that comes to mind is the Rebuild ABI. I think for me, having housing development for economically disadvantaged populations is a high priority and something that has been really near and dear to my heart. And so with the Rebuild ABI, you have the private sector along with the public sector being incentivized and building houses in these underdeveloped communities, or these communities that have been long forgotten. And so that Rebuild ABI overlay continues to incentivize a lot of our development builders with private dollars, public dollars, and reinvesting into these neighborhoods and bringing them up to the beautification standards that we would all want our neighborhoods to be. And so that for me is really, really important, because we're not just improving neighborhoods, but we're really combining a collaborative effort with our private sector, our public sector, and our city.
Sure. If you could evaluate your performance as you approach the end of your second term, what grade would you give yourself and the council, and why? I know this is a tough one.
That's a tough one. I think, I always was taught when you take an exam, you don't look around at other people's grades or their answers per se. So I'll just answer for myself. I think that if I were to think of a grade, this is going to be tough because I'm always wanting those A's, but I think realistically, B+ would be something, because we're always trying to strive to do better. I don't always get every decision right, but I will always own every decision that I make. I think that we remain steadfast in prioritizing streets, water, public safety, economic development, infrastructure. But we also understand that we're trying to balance conversations with the public sector, the private sector, and our citizens who are our bosses. And so for me, that continues to remain a priority, but it's something that I don't feel like you ever have arrived at. It's something that is in process continuously.
I like how you put that.
Yep.
All right, well, in about 20 to 30 seconds, you have your own camera. Share with the viewers, the constituents, why they should re-elect Travis Craver.
I want you to know that I feel so passionate about this job as a city councilman. I remain steadfast in the different promises that I've asked and kept to you, the citizens. I want you to continue to believe in me, to vote for me, and to know that Travis Craver is for you. I will continue to represent you in a way that is admirable and equitable on city council. So remember, vote Travis Craver for Abilene City Council, place 6.